to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and your Philadelphia Union are victorious over the New England Revolution by a score of 3-1 in the first game of the best-of-3 series between these two clubs. And we'll go ahead and talk about some news, other results around the league in regard to the playoffs. We'll go ahead and talk about this whole playoff format and give my thoughts and feelings on it. We'll go ahead and obviously talk about this match, talk about blunder of the week, play a couple Jim Curtin sound bites. And man, it always feels like every time I don't record the podcast on Sunday, release it to you guys on Monday, I always wait till the next day. There always seems to be some kind of breaking news that is getting put out towards the universe. And we'll talk about that breaking news here in a little bit. But I want to give a quick shout out to MLS and Apple for not blocking my YouTube video for the goals breakdown. So yes, finally, a goals breakdown video is live on YouTube for this game. Maybe some of you guys have already seen that video. If you have, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for the patience. Fingers crossed that MLS and Apple, well, it's never been an MLS issue. It's always been an Apple issue. So hopefully Apple doesn't block any more videos. Fingers crossed, because we all know I'm the biggest Apple supporter out there. Think what? A new MacBook just came out. It's about to come out. Go get that if you guys haven't. Mac's amazing. Apple TV, amazing. iPhone, amazing. No, this isn't an ad, but I'm just really trying to have Apple not take down my videos on YouTube anymore. So, support Apple. I think we're all doing that anyway with MLS Season Pass. So, like I said, we have some news, and I don't want to delay time anymore. So, without further ado, let's get straight into the news. But we'll go ahead and start with the easy stuff. We'll talk about the playoff results if you guys haven't been paying attention to the playoffs. We got you. Every single game in the Western Conference has been played. One game we're waiting on in the Eastern Conference, and that is Columbus and Atlanta. So we'll go ahead and start with the Western Conference. Biggest upset on the night was Sporting Kansas City over St. Louis by a score of 4-1. Sporting Kansas City went in and absolutely dominated St. Louis at their home stadium. Now, Sporting Kansas City will be at home on November 5th. All they need is one more win. Houston with a 2-1 victory over RSL. They'll play again on November 6th. LAFC over Vancouver 5-2. And this was a crazy game in the first half. 2 goals for each club, I believe. And then in the second half, LAFC really turned it on. Ryan Hollingshead and Denny Bowanga both scoring 2 goals in this match. Those two teams will play on November 5th in Vancouver. And then Seattle versus Dallas, which happened last night, I believe it was. Seattle over Dallas by a score of 2-0. They'll go to Dallas on November 4th. And then going to the Western Conference, Cincinnati over Red Bulls by a score of 3-0. They'll play November 4th. We know Union over New England. They'll play November 8th. Columbus and Atlanta hasn't happened yet. That game will happen on November 1st. And then Orlando City over Nashville by a score of 1-0. They'll play again on November 7th. And Cartagena scored an outstanding goal for Orlando City in that game. We knew it was going to be tight defensively. 2 really good defensive teams in MLS between those 2 clubs. We knew offensively, Nashville's been struggling this season and can't generate any goals in this game against Orlando City. Will they be able to do that in Nashville? We shall see. But the big news that I'm talking about, and I think by now most of you guys have probably seen the Athletic report stating that MLS is reviewing racial slur allegations against Philadelphia Union's Kai Wagner. MLS said to The Athletic, MLS is aware of the allegations that a player used discriminatory language towards an imposing player, and a review of the matter is underway. The league has been working with the MLSPA and Black Players for Change on a process to address these types of allegations and will have no further comment during the pendency of the review. So, and the allegations say that Kai Wagner, in the 87th minute, him and Bobby Wood got together, and Kai Wagner allegedly used a slur towards Bobby Wood in German. Wood, who people aren't aware, spent a good majority of his career in Germany, so he does indeed speak and understand German. And those two had two get-togethers in the 87th minute, and you can't really make too much away in the game video. And so I'm not going to speculate what was said, what wasn't said. I don't think that's fair to anybody while MLS really hasn't announced much information in this alleged slur. But the one thing I will say is I hope MLS takes their time in this investigation. I hope, just because playoffs are going on, I hope that they do not rush to try to make a decision to benefit the union, to let them know, hey, you're going to have Kai Wagner, you're not going to have Kai Wagner. During something like this, you definitely want them to take their time. And I believe MLS will take their time looking into these allegations. Yes, they're going to look at game film. They're going to look at other camera angles that maybe weren't available to the public during the broadcast. Yes, they're going to see if the referee's mic picked up anything. Yes, they're going to see if the field mics picked up anything. So, like I said, I mean, I hope MLS does not rush to any judgment. Take their time. Take as long as they need. And I guess the most recent examples in MLS are the Dante Vanzeir situation and then Taxi Funtas the last 2 seasons. And we know Taxi no longer in MLS. Dante Vanzeir was suspended for 6 games, I believe it was. And that was a mess. The good thing was, in that situation, if there was a good thing, that Dante came out and said, yes, I did say this. I did not know it was a slur. But he did admit to using language that wasn't appropriate. And he got his suspension. And now he's injured with the Red Bulls, so karma, maybe not. But Taxi Funtas was alleged to have used racial language towards Damian Lowe against Inter Miami last season. And MLS said, we don't have enough evidence to charge Taxi. Yes, we believe the claims. There seems to be a case here, but we can't officially charge Taxi with anything. And so that investigation lasted from September 18th to October 31st. And then just this season, again, another racist incident with Taxi Funtas, this time with his teammate Nigel Rebertha. That investigation lasted from July 21st through August 10th. And then DC United wound up releasing Taxi, and now I believe he plays in Turkey. And then Dante, that investigation lasted from April 8th to April 13th. And that investigation, I'm sure, didn't last as long because Dante came out and said, yeah, this is what I said. And so, like I said, I'm not going to speculate what Kai may or may not have said. You hope, again, I'll repeat myself, that MLS takes their time. It doesn't matter that Kai Wagner's the Union's best player, one of their best players. None of that matters. What matters is you find the facts and you try to find as much evidence as you can to support Bobby Wood in his claims that Kai Wagner used a racial slur. So we'll see what happens in that case. As of when I'm recording this podcast on Tuesday evening, there has been no update, no statement by the union. MLS, I just read it to you guys in the Athletics report. They won't be releasing a statement until further notice. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on. And yeah, I mean, it's not a good look for the Philadelphia Union. But let's go ahead and talk about this Philadelphia Union and New England Revolution game. And I got to be honest with you guys that Saturday's match didn't feel like a playoff game. It, in all honesty, just felt like another game. And I don't know if you guys feel the same way. I don't know if you guys thought, hey, this doesn't feel like a playoff game because it's the new format. Is it because of the amount of games that the Union have played this year? You guys are just tired. Maybe the weather. And I think the weather did kind of play a factor. You would think that a lot of people would come out to this game because it was beautiful weather. But when you think playoff soccer, you think brisk, cold air. And we did not get that at all Saturday. And I'm grateful for that because the cold weather is definitely coming. But I think a lot of those factors probably play into why we didn't see Subaru Park packed. And it was the same thing with LAFC. Their stadium wasn't full either. Both teams have played over 45 games this season. And I think just fans in general are tired. I know players are tired. I know people in that front office for the Union, they're tired. I think people that covered this team are tired. I think you guys as fans think you're tired as well. I think everybody's just ready for this season to be over with, if I'm being honest. And yes, it's great to see all these people come out on Halloween weekend to support the Union. But if that is to be the Union's last game of the season, you would hope that more fans would have been there. And yes, there's a chance that the Union could be back at Subaru Park on November 12th, but we'll see. Maybe the Union come away with a victory in New England. The Union win the series 2-0. And trust me, we will definitely talk about this playoff format in like 2 minutes. But I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? Did it feel like a playoff game to you? And it's also pretty telling to me that my mindset into that game was, yes, I know it's playoffs. But I was also thinking too that, this could be the end of an era for the Union. We know all the reports linking Kai Wagner, Julian Kranza away from the club. We've seen reports linking Jack McGlynn away from the club, Olivier Bizo away from the club. Could more players be on the way out? It's possible. And the Union have been, and Jim Curtin says it all the time, the last 5 years they've had the most points in the league. They've been a dominant team without the trophies to show for it. And I believe you go all the way back to 2019, only 4 players from that squad still remain on the squad today, and Joe Bendick, Andre Blake, Alejandro Bedoya, Jack Elliott, and Kai Wagner. So 5 players. It's only 5 players from that 2019 squad. And man, it feels like this club's come such a long way from 2019 to where we're currently at. And I think we all felt back in 2019 that the Union were on the verge of doing something extremely special. I mean, we talked about it a while ago on the podcast, looking at just all the players that the Union had brought in from different seasons. It was over like 11 or 12 players, I believe it was, in 2019. Cedric Santos, Aurelian Collin, Kai Wagner, Marco Fabian, Michi Galina, Carlos Canel, Jameer Montero, Casper Shabelko, RJ Allen, Joe Bendick, Andrew Rutin, Matt Freeze, Brendan Aronson. A lot of players there. You guys do the math. How many players did I just name? I'm not good at doing math on the spot. But you felt like with all the change we saw in 2019 and the Union getting their first playoff win in 2019, you felt like, all right, this team finally has a sporting director that knows what they're doing. They have a clear vision for the club. This club's going to go in a good direction. And it's come a long way since 2019 with the constant change, the turnover. And it's not often you keep a core group of players together this long. And Jim Curtin was asked midweek leading up to this game against New England, does this feel like it's the end of an era?
Look, at the end of every season, there's always changes. We've had a core group of guys that have produced the most points in this league over the last 6 seasons. So the consistency is something that the players deserve all the credit for. You guys know the guys that have logged the minutes and have won the games and have made the Philadelphia Union become one of the most outstanding franchises in our league. And that's something that we're very proud of. Like you said, I'd love to keep the whole entire group together because they still are all contributing in a big way. And they're all winners. So again, whether one way or the other, though, this isn't going to be the exact same team as when the season starts next year. That's the reality of our sport. So, yeah, if you want to call this one the Last Dance, the Last Waltz, if you like music more, great movie, by the way. If you like the band, it's going to be a group that I know is together. I know will fight for everything, and I know is a tough out. And look, Jonathan, all the last year we broke every record in the club's history, right? We had an extraordinary year. It was a great season. I recognize we didn't meet those exact expectations this year, but this is still a really good group. Maybe we don't win all the end of season awards, have all the guys win, every best defender of the year, goalkeeper of the year, all the accolades that they get. But we're still a really strong team and one that I think can do something special still.
And I'll go ahead and comment on what Jim Curtin said there lastly, that he believes this group can do something special. And that's another thing, too, about this not feeling like a playoff game. I'll be fully transparent. I was telling people I don't expect the Union to go far in the playoffs. I told some people I think the Union are going to lose this series. In my bracket, I did not have the Union losing. I had the Union facing off against New York Red Bulls in the next game, and then the Union beating the Red Bulls and then losing to Columbus. But not that any of you guys care what my bracket looks like, but yeah, I just don't feel confident in this team right now, if I'm being honest. And I think a lot of you guys feel the same way. I mean, I think it's apparent listening to the last couple podcast episodes. I've not been that high on this club. And I'm pretty sure we talked about this last episode. That's because of the expectations that the club set last year with all the records. You heard Jim Curtin talking about the club breaking all the players up for all these different accolades, and not so much this year. And at the same time, now the Union are kind of riding under the radar like they were in previous seasons. And Jim Curtin also talked about that midweek, where that's kind of the way that the team likes it, because they like to have that underdog mentality. Right now, everybody's talking about, oh, Cincinnati or, oh, St. Louis. People are not forgetting about the Union, I'll say, but they're not constantly talking about them like they were last season. I mean, look at LAFC. People aren't talking about them like they were last year. And they beat Vancouver 5-2. And maybe LAFC are going to go on this crazy run. We don't know. It's possible. And so I think however long this playoff run lasts for the Union, and whether or not Saturday was the last home game of the season, I hope fans don't take this group of players for granted. And there's always changes every single year in sports. I mean, look, this team wasn't the same as it was last year either. Corey Burke leaves, you bring in Andres Pereira, Joaquin Torres. Those guys don't experience what the Union went through last year. And yes, I get it right. Those guys didn't really live up to the expectations the Union had this season for them. Maybe something changes in the playoffs for Joaquin Torres. One can hope. Wouldn't bet on it, but yeah, I mean, I hope people don't forget how special this air was. And man, here I am talking about this, acting like the Union have been eliminated from the playoffs. But I think more fans will start to think about that once the Union are knocked out of the playoffs. Maybe they don't get knocked out. Maybe they win MLS Cup. But I was definitely thinking about that during the game Saturday. Like, this could be the last time that we've seen Julian Crowns in person, the last time we've seen Kai Wagner in person. Maybe the last time we see Alejandro Bedoya in person. And you try not to get attached to players. At least I don't. Because if you look at all the Union gear that I have, I don't have a single player's name and number on the back of a jersey because players are constantly leaving and going. And I think during this era, the one player that I probably will wind up regretting not getting is Alejandro Bedoya. That guy embodies everything there is about Philadelphia Union. And we know Ernst Tanner said he won't be back next season. Jim Curtin said that he's optimistic that the right thing will be done. So we'll see what happens. But I think if there's one Union player's jersey that I wind up regret not getting their name and number on the back of my jersey is Bedoya. Great player, but somehow we got on this long rant about it not feeling like a playoff game. Now we're talking about players' names and numbers on the back of their jerseys. But I do want to talk about that playoff format because I do have a lot of thoughts on this ridiculous format. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? Where it's a best of 3 series. And I was thinking about this too. And I said this in the press box. I'm like, the Union can legit win this game against New England 10-0. And it doesn't matter. Like, New England wouldn't care. Maybe they'd be a little bit pissed that they gave up 10 goals. But aggregate score doesn't matter in this 3-legged series. So they don't care if they give up 10 goals because they go into the next game. It's a brand new game. It's 0-0. The 5 goals that LAFC scored over Vancouver, that doesn't matter. The 4 goals that Sporting Kansas City scored over St. Louis, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many goals you score, how much you win by, as long as you get the win. And number one, that right there is a joke for me. So if you want to have a best of 3 format, then why aren't we counting goals? Why aren't they carrying over? Nope. MLS and Apple can't make it that simple. And then I think my biggest issue with this whole thing is there's going to be teams that win the first 2 games. And now that 3rd game is not going to happen. There's a minimum of 2 weeks off if you win the first 2 games. A minimum. Some teams I'm looking at it right now, like if Cincinnati win against New York Red Bulls on November 4th, then they're going to have 21 or 22 days off. That's an insane amount of time off. 3 weeks off? Look at the Union, for example. If the Union win on November 8th, they'll have 17 or 18 days off. And you kind of want to say Wouldn't it be better if you played all 3 games because you would have less days off? You're still going to have 2 weeks off. Don't get me wrong, if you go to the best of 3. But it's a lot better than having 3 weeks off in most of these cases. It's ridiculous. If my math's correct, if the Union win in the first 2 games, compared to all the other teams, they would have the shortest amount of time off. If everybody else wins in 2 games as well, then the Union would have either 17 or 18 days off because the next set of games wouldn't be until November 25th or 26th. But do you guys remember what happened in 2021 for the Union or 2020 for the Union? It was a ridiculous amount of time off. It was, I want to say, 2.5 weeks. Maybe it was 3. I mean, it was something absurd. It wasn't, a week off and then you're playing again. No. I'm pretty sure they had close to 3 weeks off. And then they get beat at home by New England. Who's shocked by that? Not me. I mean, yes, it's upsetting that the Union, played New England for like the 7th or 8th time, whatever the case was. But then you get punished in a sense for getting the first round bye and having off that amount of time. Look what happened to New England in 2021. They get upset by New York City because they had like 2 weeks off as well. The game goes to penalties, I believe it is, and New York City are victorious. And then don't have to remind anybody about what happened in the next game. But you feel like with that much time off, that much rest, it punishes teams. Yes, these teams are going to schedule scrimmages against other teams, but that doesn't replicate what happens in a real life playoff game. You can't replicate when all the noise is in the stadium, when all the lights are on you, when the TV cameras are rolling. You can't replicate any of that stuff. You can try, but it's not going to compare to the real thing. And for a minimum of 2 weeks off from the first round series to the conference semifinals, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. And we talked to Mikal Uhr, Jack Elliott after the game. And we asked about that. And the response we got was, it is what it is. Neither player, you could tell, wanted to say how they truly felt. Jack Elliott said that they would rather play New England in another week, not wait until November 8th. But like you said, it is what it is. I mean, it's ridiculous. And let alone that no team in MLS really felt dominant this season. Now what team come the Eastern Conference, Western Conference semifinals, which team is going to be able to find momentum? I don't think any team is, honestly. But by some luck, whatever team does find momentum, they've got to be favorites to win MLS Cup, right? You would think. I mean, this playoff format is an absolute joke. And I'm sure next season there's going to be tinkering with it yet again. But man, like, I started off the podcast talking about how tiring I am of this season. And yes, I think people at times felt disinterested, got bored. I mean, people are going to get bored after their team wins the first 2 games and now they're off for 3 weeks. How are you going to convince those fans to drive back to the stadium? How are you going to convince those fans to get excited for the playoffs? Because those 3 weeks off feels like you've killed all momentum. How are people going to be excited? They're not. And man, once MLS finally feels like they're doing something good, they shoot themselves in the foot and take away all that momentum. And I know part of this isn't on MLS. It's on Apple saying they want more games because more games means more money. But this is going to kill their product. Your casual fans, maybe your first time watchers, are going to look at MLS for the very first time and say, oh, I knew it. MLS hasn't changed. This is what MLS has always been, a terrible league, terrible soccer. Because I feel like that stigma that you've heard of MLS being a retirement league, ooh, goalkeeping's not good, defending's not good. They would never do this in Europe. I feel like slowly but surely that stigma's been dying. But you get people watching these playoffs for the very first time, and they're going to keep up with that stigma. So, look, complaining about it, going on TED Talks, complaining about it on social media, emailing your ticket reps how you're not renewing season tickets for next season because you don't like the playoff format. None of that's going to matter. None of that's going to change anything. Stealing a line from the players, it is what it is. So let's go ahead and talk about this game, actually, because we spent a long time complaining about everything but the game. I thought it was a really dominant performance by the Union in the first half. And that's pretty typical of this team during the season at home. They're usually a pretty dominant first half team. Get a couple goals. Don't really concede a lot. And then they coast the rest of the match. And we see a huge save by Andre Blake in the first half of this match. The chaos in the box by New England. Buck hits the post. Damian Lowe, I believe, got a block in there someplace. Maybe a couple blocks. So maybe it wasn't so much Andre Blake in the 9th minute. The Union catch a break that Buck hits the post. But the Union could have been down in this game. And I think if New England scores a goal in the first 10 minutes of this game, that changes everything. And yes, it's easy to say that. But now New England are going to sit back. They do not need to attack. They're going to wait to hit the Union on the counterattack. They'll give the Union majority of the ball, because that's what good teams do. But it doesn't really happen. You know, the Union catch a big break and they get that penalty by Julian Kranza. Yes, 100% a penalty in my opinion. Jackson takes Julian Kranza out. I said in the goals breakdown, that was a beautiful play by the Union. The switch over from Jose Martinez. And then the ball gets played left. Jack McGlynn hustles the ball down, keeps the ball in play. And then Julian Kranza is then first to react to the ball, and penalty awarded to the Union. And the Union actually, before the penalty was given, they had a chance to score with Daniel Gazdag. The ball finds its way to Mikel Ua. Mikel Ua plays a good cross into Daniel Gazdag, and he misses a free header. Can't have that. Fortunately for the Union, the penalty was given, and Daniel Gazdag converts that. 20 for 20 now in his Union career. I believe. Insane stat. I think my favorite goal of the night was the one that Mikel Uhr scored. And yeah, maybe it's a little bit fortunate that the ball hits off of Romney, ricochets off the goalkeeper, and then Mikel Uhr is in the right place, right time. Goal, Mikel. But the way that goal happened, Jose Martinez into Kai Wagner to McGlynn with a chip ball over the top, and then the cross you would have hoped would have been a little bit better by Kai Wagner, but it doesn't matter. The Union find a way to score, and that's a striker's goal. I want to say by Mikel Uhr, being in the right place, right time, his instincts to make that run. For Kai Wagner and Jack McGlynn to combine that well on the left-hand side. It's a really well-worked goal by the Union. The Nate Herriel goal, fantastic. Beautiful free kick by Kai Wagner. People are calling Nate Herriel Herriel now. Not a bad nickname. Fantastic player. Say it all the time. The Union's most athletic player on the team, and it's not even close. What this guy can do both offensively and defensively on set pieces, nobody else offers you what Nate Herriel offers you. Fantastic player. In this game, I think in the second half, there was starting to be some life in New England once Gustavo Bo got that goal. And when I get into 3 stars, I didn't include Nate Herriel because of him being at fault for this goal. Gets the ball stolen off his foot by Veroni. Ball forward to Gustavo Bo, and then fancy footwork by Bo to get past Elliott and Nate Herriel. You can't have that. When it's 2 defenders against 1 attacker, you've got to be better than that. And in that moment, Jack Elliott and Nate Herriel weren't. Yes, you probably would have hoped that Damian Lowe could have been better against Bobby Wood with that long ball up top by Jackson. Damian Lowe can't let that ball get by him. And I know that he probably doesn't know much of it after the ball hits off of the calf of Bobby Wood. And then as soon as the ball gets to Nate Herriel, Nate looks like he hesitates. Does he want to clear this ball? Does he want to pass it? Just boot it. And that's good awareness by Veroni to take the ball off of Nate. But that whole play should have been avoided. There's no reason for it. And Jack Elliott talked after the game that, yeah, it's kind of annoying that the Union gave up the clean sheet because you give up the goal to Bo. Now they have a little bit of belief in them. A huge save by Andre Blake in the 75th minute on Wood. And I had a really big problem with that play because like we saw last week in New England for the final game of the season, there was times the Union gave too much time and space to Carlos Heel, where he could lift his head, pick a pass. And that's what happened with Boateng. The midfield gave him way too much time and space. Lifted his head. It's a beautiful pass forward to Bobby Wood. Andre Blake with a world-class save. But if this game's 3-2, now all the momentum is with the Revs. They've scored 2 goals within 8 minutes or something like that. They're going to be feeling really good about themselves. And mind you, Carlos Heel is not able to continue in this game past the 23rd minute because of the challenge by Mikel Uhr. Hip to hip. Looked like a Philadelphia Flyers player with that hit. And so, I mean, you already felt like, okay, New England loses their best player. What do they have to play for? They go with 4 attackers up top. And if they score those 2 goals in the second half with all those attackers they have on the field, now they're feeling so confident that they can get the equalizer, maybe even get the win. And can you imagine if the Union loses this game against New England without Carlos Heel? Wouldn't it have been a beautiful sight at all? But, at the end of the day, the Union take care of business. They do what they need to do. And that's enough to get the win. I think, again, if you want to nitpick, because it's easier to nitpick when the Union win than it is to when they lose. My question would be, how come every time the Union are at home, how come they can't replicate their first half performance into the second half? 5 goals conceded in the first half compared to 8 in the second half. And by the way, 4 of those 8 goals conceded in the second half have come in the last 6 home games, not including playoffs. 15 goals scored in the second half compared to 8 against. 18 goals for compared to 5 against in the first half. I mean, it looks like a completely different team coming out of the half. And that's not something we saw last year with the Union at all. Because the Union would blow out teams in both halves. They would just continue scoring for fun. And yes, you should feel confident the Union are up 3-0. Nothing to worry about. But do I need to remind you guys of the Cincinnati game? The Atlanta United game? The Union are up 3-0. Give up 2 goals in the second half. Union are up 2-0 against Cincinnati in the first half. Give up 2 goals in the second half. There's something not clicking with this group in the second half. And it's got to be better. You want to see a complete performance. And I think we haven't seen that for the most part this season at home in the second half. And just overall, I mean, I feel like the Union are a better first half team than they have been second half. And just looking at basic stats, 30 goals for in the first half in home and away games, 18 against. 27 in the second half, 23 against. Union much, much, much better in the first half. 12 goals for, 13 against in the first half away. 12 goals for, 15 away in the second half. Something you hope that the Union can correct with however many playoff games that they have. You feel like, though, I mean, this late in the season, if little things like that haven't been corrected, they're probably not going to be corrected. But I don't know. Maybe the Union's that team that somehow finds momentum after the 2 to 3 week break. Maybe they'll get lucky and find the momentum. Maybe it's a much needed rest for these players. I don't think so. I don't think the players feel that way as well. But I'm not going to speak for them. That's just the vibes that they give off in the locker room. But the last thing that I'll bring up, or last 3 things, sorry, is an update to Jakob Glesnes. If you guys missed it, Jim Curtin said that Jakob will be getting sports hernia surgery. That was supposed to happen today when we're recording this podcast. He'll be out weeks. Jim said that he's been dealing with that injury the last 2.5 months, and the pain just got too much now, and so it's best to get Jakob the surgery now, and it's the next man up in Damian Lowe, and we'll talk about Damian here in a bit in 3 stars. And then Jim also gave an update to Tai Baribo. He picked up a small knock on Friday. That's why he wasn't on the bench. But Tai will be going away with the Israeli national team for games on November 12th, 15th, 18th, and 21st. And so the Union are going to make Tai available for those matches. And the Union aren't going to hold him back. So Tai should be with the Union for the second game in New England, and then he'll be away with the Israeli national team. And again, you just talk about next man up. So if it's not Tai getting those minutes, which I know it really hasn't been the case here the last couple of weeks, it's been Quinn Sullivan, but even Quinn's found minutes hard to come by. Again, it's somebody else. If it's not Tai coming off the bench, then who is it? Walking Tours? And then the last thing that I'll play, soundbite from Jim Curtin, is how do you transition from regular season mode to playoff mode where wins have been hard to come by for the team? You just picked up a win against New England. How can you continue to get wins?
The good thing, we don't get beat either, though. You know what I mean? So that's the one thing that, we'll still, even on the road, we'll take pride in that, not a lot of teams have beat us over the last 15. Of course, we want more wins. And we know that. And I think the fans feel the same way. But the fact that, we don't concede a lot, the fact that we can push teams, to the limit and keep a clean sheet, that might be all it takes in this next game. And you go to PKs and you win it. So, the win is big. Anytime you win, it brings confidence to the group. I wish we had that 6-7 goal breakout, to set the tone in this first game. I think that would have been good for everybody. But 3-1 keeps us nice and humble and hungry for the next one. So it's a group that is capable of that breakout, Greg, and can beat anybody. So we like that part of things. But overall, yeah, it's good to win. It feels really, really good, and it's a big playoff win. It's hard to win in this league, guys. I tell you, there's a lot of teams that are sitting watching already. It is really difficult, and our group has found a way now pretty consistently through the years now to get these playoff wins, and they feel good. We don't really celebrate them anymore, which is kind of sad, but this was a good win.
It's a good basic first win in the playoffs. You heard Jim say, when we get going, we can get going with the front three. I'm not too confident that Mikel, Julian, and Daniel Gazdag will start clicking. You hope that this team will start clicking. Maybe this is the start of a winning streak. I mean, it's got to be a start of a winning streak, right? There's no losing in the playoffs. There's no drawing. You lose, you're out. There's no draw in the first round. You go to penalties. 3 wins in the last 10 games for the Union. And yeah, Jim mentioned, we don't get beat. Okay, but you got to find a winner somehow. You guys haven't scored consistently. You look at the last 10 games. 0-0 against Nashville, 0-0 against LAFC, 1-1 against Dallas, 1-1 against Columbus. Only 3 games out of those 10 that you've scored 3 or more goals. New York Red Bulls, Atlanta, New England. Do you guys feel confident that the Union will start breaking out? That front three will start clicking? I don't, in all honesty, but I would love to be proven wrong. And I'm sure some of you guys that doubt this team as well would also like to be proven wrong. One last stat, and I promise we'll get to 3 stars and then blunder of the week. One thing I found interesting, if this was in fact the last regular season home game for the Union this year, in all competitions this year at Subaru Park, the Union went 17-9-2, only 2 losses against Orlando City and Inter Miami. the Union scored 54 goals, 22 goals against, a plus 32 goal differential. But the most concerning stat in all that is what I'm about to give you guys. That is, the Union have conceded in 62% of their home 62% of their home matches this season. It's not good. For a team that prides themselves on keeping clean sheets, being strong defensively, you concede in 62% of your home games. It's not good. Yes, you have a plus 32 goal differential, but I literally just gave you guys stats. A 0-0 game, a 1-1 game, 1-1, 0-0, 1-2 loss to New England. Where are the goals coming from? Have they all been wasted in the middle part of the season? Maybe. But let's go ahead and talk about 3 stars. Start with 3-1. Number 3, Andre Blake. 5 saves in this game. We talked about the huge save against Bobby Wood. Game-changing moment right there. The chaos in the 9th minute. Andre Blake looked really, really good in this game. And yes, if the Union are going to go far, they need their front 3 clicking. But they also need Andre Blake to play like Andre Blake. And this is a good game to get that going. Number 2, Damian Lowe. 2 out of 2 tackles won, 2 blocks, 2 interceptions, 5 ball recoveries, 3 out of 3 ground duels won. And I talked about how it's the next man up mentality with Jakob out. That's going to be Damian Lowe. And I just get the feeling that Damian Lowe's a big moment player. Do you guys get that same feeling? We saw it in the Champions League. And Jim Curtin brought up the Atlas game where Damian Lowe had a huge game against the striker in that match. Kept out with him for pace to pace. And he had such a good tournament that he got bought by Club America in the summer, I believe it was. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name because I know if I do, I'm going to butcher it. But you guys know the player that I'm talking about, Quiones. Probably saying that wrong. Quiones, Julian Quiones. But yeah, Damian Lowe had a big performance against him. And I feel like when the Union have needed to get a result and Damian Lowe's played, he stepped up to the plate. And with it being playoff time, you need to get results every single time. Results being win. So I think Damian Lowe is going to be fine here for the Union in the playoffs. I think he's going to fill in for Jakob Glesnes as well. The one good thing is with Jakob Glesnes being out is I can't see the Union playing 5 in the back now. That's a good thing, right? But maybe it does happen. I don't think it will, but maybe it does. Jim Curtin's going to finish listening to this podcast and said, yeah, just because you said I'm not going to play 5 in the back, I'm going to go ahead and play 5 in the back. And then number 1 of the night, Kai Wagner, 1 assist, 2 chances created, 3 out of 4 tackles, 1, 3 ball recoveries. The only concerning thing in this game for Kai, well, 2 concerning things. We talked about it, the alleged racial slur, and then he was dribbled by 4 times in this game. But created some good chances for the Union in this game. Big assist on the Nate Harriel goal. If his cross wouldn't have hit, Romney would have had 2 assists in this game. But big game defensively and offensively from Kai Wagner. And that is your 3 stars. And so we'll go ahead and talk about blunder of the week quickly. And yes, some of you guys are probably thinking, well, blunder of the week should be the Kai Wagner issue. Yes, it should be the Dom Badgie issue. which, by the way, if you guys aren't familiar with that situation, some fan on Instagram racially abused Dom Badgie, and a whole bunch of people said this is unacceptable. We'll see what happens. As far as I saw, the worst thing that happened to that person is their account got banned. Big deal, right? Not sure what you can do to somebody online, if I'm being honest. I mean, number one, it's never okay to racially abuse anybody. But I'm not really sure what MLS or FC Cincinnati can do to this person. I'm sure they'll say you're banned from every single stadium. But these people that act like morons on social media and say things that they would never say in person, this guy would never act the way that he did online in person to Dom Badgie. No way he would do that. And if I had to guess, he's probably not even going to MLS games. So what good does banning him from stadiums do? My opinion. So yeah, that's a good shout for Blunder of the Week. But Blunder of the Week for me is going to go to the Marseille fans for throwing rocks at the Lyon bus and seriously injuring Lyon's manager, Fabio Grosso.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah, not good at all. And apparently this always happens between these two clubs. It's a fierce rivalry, and there's been 7 arrests so far that I've seen so far reading into this incident. Apparently, coaches carrying Lyon fans were also targeted before the game. And Lyon said in a statement, regrets that this type of situation occurs every year in Marseille, adding that the club invites the authorities to take stock of the seriousness and reputation of this type of incident before an even more serious tragedy occurs. And yeah, I mean, just getting pelted by stones so much so that the coach has to get stitches because he's all bloody from the incident. Apparently, the coach couldn't talk because he had glass all in his face from the windows being broken. I mean, it's a joke. And yes, of course, the Marseille club comes out and says, yeah, we condone violence, blah, blah, blah. But it happens there all the time. And it's a shame seeing incidents year after year involving French teams, or you want to take it a step further. I mean, it's a joke that we see incidents like this, racial behavior, hooliganism, homophobic chants. I mean, just all the negative stuff in football and soccer. I mean, it's a shame that that stuff goes on in the world, and especially over a game. People treat this like it's their life, it's life or death. And I get it, right? In South America, in some places in Europe, it is essentially that, life or death. But at the end of the day, it's a game. And so when you have these type of incidents, it just makes me shake my head, and it confuses me why idiots want to act that way. And so maybe Blunder of the Week should be all of that. The alleged racial slur by Kai Wagner, the racial remarks on social media towards Dom Badgie of FC Cincinnati, the Marseille fans attacking the Lyon coach buses. I mean, it's a joke. Absolute joke. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow @FreeKickPod wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick. Be sure to like, review, subscribe. Let me know what you like about the podcast, what you don't. Leaving 5 stars does go a long way, but if you guys don't want to, I definitely understand. Because I welcome all types of feedback. And the YouTube page, youtube.com/freekickpod. And that's everything that I normally plug, I believe. And I do want to give you guys an update. I do definitely want to give an update. So that game on November 8th, I will be able to watch the first half and part of the second half, I want to say. Because I'll be at a concert that day. And yes, I know. Before you guys are in my DMs saying, you're a fake fan. Why are you covering this team? You can't commit an evening to this team. Don't want to give up going to this concert. Going to the 1975. Apparently this is their last concert before they go on hiatus. I've never seen them before. So I'm not going to miss the concert. So there may or may not be a review podcast episode. If the Union win, then we'll do a review episode. If the Union lose, then because November 12th, that Saturday, I believe that game would be, that's not enough time for me to go home the next day, watch the game, take notes, and then give you guys a podcast episode, plus goals breakdown. So if the Union lose in game 2, no goals breakdown, no review episode. But if they win, then I'll eventually give you guys both of those. So I want to give you guys an update on both of those. So you guys don't say, well, where'd you go, Todd? Games happen, but there's no podcast, no goals breakdown video. Now you guys have the update. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.